There's a storm brewing in the NFL, and it's not about touchdowns. It's about turf. Not the kind under cleats, but the cultural kind. Old school values versus new school energy. Tradition versus self-branding. And right now, the battleground is a 21-year-old quarterback with a famous last name, a phone full of receipts, and the confidence to wear a diamond watch in the fourth quarter.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Shedeur Sanders. The clash came to a head when Rex Ryan, former NFL coach turned fire-breathing commentator, went on air and accused Sanders of being lazy, unmotivated, and, get this, an embarrassment. And just like that, the old-school crowd had its rallying cry. Never mind the fact that Ryan hadn't seen the inside of a locker room in years. His words hit hard, and wrong, because what Rex didn't realize, or didn't care to check, is that Shedeur Sanders has been putting in the work, not hypothetically, not behind some closed-door PR spin, literally on camera, sitting front row in meetings, talking through plays with coaches, studying with veterans. He's not just in the room. He's leading the room. The second that footage came out, Rex Ryan's narrative disintegrated like a cheap cleat in the rain. But this isn't just about one bad take. It's about a deeper resistance to what players like Shedeur represent. He's not just confident. He's unapologetic. He markets himself, speaks his mind, and challenges the idea that young players have to grovel before they shine. And that drives the old guard absolutely insane. To someone like Rex Ryan, confidence without a Super Bowl ring looks like arrogance. But to a new generation of athletes and fans, confidence is the brand. It's part of the grind. If you're building a career in a league that can drop you in a heartbeat, why wouldn't you build a name they can't ignore? That's the cultural earthquake under this entire controversy. Rex didn't just attack Shedeur Sanders. He tried to enforce an outdated code, one where players are supposed to stay humble, invisible, and quiet until they're proven. But Shedeur was raised by Deion Sanders, a man who proved that swagger, work ethic, and success are not mutually exclusive. In fact, for some, they're inseparable. So now, Rex Ryan's under fire not just for being wrong, but for being loud and wrong. And quietly, the NFL doesn't love that kind of spotlight. When your talking heads start dragging a rising star with false claims, it makes everyone look bad, especially when the receipts show otherwise. In this culture clash, Shedeur isn't the villain, he's the future. And Rex Ryan, he just handed him the mic. Rex Ryan didn't stumble into controversy. He charged headfirst into it, spewing a narrative about Shedeur Sanders that wasn't just exaggerated. It was provably false. He said Shedeur lacked work ethic. He called him lazy. He labeled him an embarrassment to the game. And he did it with the smug confidence of someone who thought no one would check the facts. But the facts were already public. Footage from team meetings showed exactly the opposite of what Rex claimed. Shedeur Sanders wasn't slouching in the back or zoning out on his phone. He was in the front row, locked in with coaches and veterans, studying game plans and fully engaged in the process. The receipts came in fast, and they were devastating. Every second of that footage dismantled Rex's narrative in real time. So now the league had a problem. Because this wasn't just a case of someone being wrong. It was a high-profile analyst, someone still deeply connected to NFL media and culture, publicly lying about a rising star. And not just any rising star. A player whose visibility, confidence, and legacy already had him under a microscope. Behind closed doors, the league was reportedly furious. Not because they suddenly care about defending players from media attacks, but because they know what this kind of slander can do. False accusations like this don't just fade out. They stick to a player's name, affecting draft position, endorsements, and public perception. And for what? A soundbite? That's the real issue here. Shedeur Sanders didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't late to practice. He didn't skip meetings. He wasn't slacking off or disrespecting his team. The only thing he did was carry himself with confidence. He didn't hide from the cameras. He didn't shrink himself to make traditionalists feel comfortable. He showed up, confident, present, and unapologetically himself. And for some, that was enough to trigger a meltdown. This is where the NFL's cultural fault lines come into focus. For decades, the league has operated on a strict code. Humility above all. Wait your turn. Pay your dues. Don't make too much noise. And if you dare to step outside that structure, the old guard will come for you. Shedeur challenged that. He entered the spotlight already fluent in branding, media presence, and the balancing act between authenticity and strategy. And that's not a fluke. It's by design. He was raised in this world. His father, Deion Sanders, spent an entire Hall of Fame career being labeled too flashy, too loud, too much. And yet he delivered. On the field, in the media, and as a cultural icon. Shedeur took notes. His confidence isn't unearned. It's inherited and reinforced by discipline. He's built to handle scrutiny. He expects it. But what happened with Rex Ryan crossed a line? It wasn't criticism. It was character damage. And in today's hyperconnected, always recording world, lies don't hold up long. That's why this moment matters. Because it wasn't just one person being proven wrong. It was a crack in the system being exposed. A system that tells players to be themselves, but punishes them for doing exactly that. A system that claims to reward charisma, but only if it's packaged in an acceptable, quiet, team-first wrapper. But Shedeur is not interested in that kind of sanitization. He's not being flashy for attention. He's not building his brand to boost his ego. He's doing what every modern athlete is now expected to do. Leverage visibility into opportunity. Build a foundation before the first professional snap. Prepare for long-term success beyond the field. And the backlash to that? It exposes how much of the NFL is still stuck in outdated traditions. The truth is, the league is trying to have it both ways. They want big personalities from marketing, but not so big that they disrupt the hierarchy. They want outspoken stars, but only after they've proven themselves on someone else's timeline. They want authenticity, but only the kind they can edit and package for primetime broadcasts. Shedeur disrupts that balance. He shows up already polished, already branded, already confident. And what the Rex Ryans of the world are really reacting to is the fact that he doesn't need their approval. He's not waiting for a coach or an analyst or a veteran to tell him he belongs. He knows he belongs. And worse for them, he has the footage to prove it. Because the most damning part of all this, the truth was right there. No one had to dig. No one had to investigate. The footage of Shedeur leading by example in those meetings already existed. And Rex Ryan either ignored it, or worse, knew it, and chose to push a false narrative anyway. That's where this becomes dangerous. Because it shows how quickly perception can override reality in NFL culture. How one strong voice can try to derail an entire reputation. And how close players still are being reduced to lazy tropes and old narratives, no matter how hard they work behind the scenes. Shedeur's case is a perfect example of the double standard at play. He's criticized for being confident, but that same confidence, when repackaged by the league for commercials or halftime interviews, suddenly becomes marketability. He's told to be humble, but also told to stand out. He's warned not to be too loud, yet expected to post, stream, and promote like a brand. It's a contradiction that only benefits those in control. And Shedeur isn't playing along. That's why his response to the controversy hit so hard. He didn't clap back. He didn't go on a media tour. He didn't lower himself to defend against lies. He let the footage speak. He let the truth circulate. He let the league and the fans see, unedited, who he really is. Someone who does the work. Someone who shows up. Someone who doesn't need to perform humility to prove his worth. And that silence, that choice to let the truth speak louder than outrage, it landed harder than any rebuttal ever could. Now, the question hanging over the league isn't, will Shedeur prove them wrong? It's, why was he doubted in the first place? Because it's not just about one analyst. It's about a system that's still not ready to fully accept players who define themselves before the league gets a chance to do it for them. It's about control, about image, about a legacy of double standards that continues to punish outspoken players, especially black quarterbacks, for existing outside of the mold. And this incident just made that mold look very breakable. Shedeur Sanders didn't ask to be the face of this conversation, but the way he's carried himself through it, calm, focused, unbothered, says more than any interview ever could. He's not playing by the old rules. He's not here to beg for acceptance. He's here to build something real. And the people who get that get it. The people who don't, they're clinging to a version of the NFL that's on its way out. So let the critics talk. Let the gatekeepers panic. The next era of football isn't just about touchdowns and trophies. It's about ownership, of image, of voice, of legacy. And if this controversy taught anyone anything, it's that Shedeur Sanders is more than ready to own all of it. If you're tired of fake narratives, tired of the double standards, and ready for the new wave of players who bring the receipts and the work ethic, drop your thoughts in the comments. Should the league finally embrace confidence as a sign of leadership? Or are they going to keep punishing players for stepping into their power? Hit that subscribe, turn on notifications, and don't miss the next time the system tries and fails to shut down a player who refuses to play small. Because confidence isn't the problem. Control is. At this point, it's not even about Rex Ryan anymore. He was just the loudest voice in a long-running echo chamber. A symptom, not the disease. What this entire controversy exposed is how deeply uncomfortable the NFL still is with players who write their own scripts. Shedeur Sanders didn't just walk into the spotlight. He owned it. And that's what really threw people like Rex off. The NFL has long operated on an unwritten rule book. If you're new, you stay quiet. You earn your voice by suppressing it for as long as it takes. You don't make noise until someone in the power structure says, "You've earned the right to speak." Shedeur flipped that rule book over on day one, and the reaction was immediate. It wasn't just critique, it was moral panic. Suddenly, confidence looked like disrespect. Branding looked like ego. And a young man who dared to sit in the front row, take notes, and post content was cast as lazy by someone who hasn't coached a team since before TikTok existed. The absurdity writes itself. And yet, it's not funny, because narratives like this stick, even when they're debunked. When someone like Rex Ryan says a player lacks work ethic, it doesn't matter if the evidence proves otherwise. That label gets echoed, memed, reposted, debated, and quoted. It shows up in draft previews, player profiles, and talk show panels. It becomes part of the story, no matter how false. That's the real damage. And it's not accidental. This is how the machine works. The NFL and the media complex that surrounds have built decades of structure around controlling who gets praised, who gets platformed, and who gets punished. It's not just about football. It's about obedience. It's about culture. It's about power. That's why Shedeur's presence feels like such a disruption. Because he's not waiting to be anointed. He doesn't need the league's PR machine to make him relevant. He's already built a brand rooted in authenticity, not approval. And that's what separates him from so many rookies before him. He's not arrogant, he's aware. There's a difference. And it's not a coincidence that this kind of awareness makes the establishment so nervous. It means they can't control the narrative anymore. Because Shedeur can drop a video, post a reel, share a moment from practice, and instantly shift public opinion before a single headline gets printed. That's power the old guard never had. And they don't know what to do with it, which is why their default setting is attack. Attack the confidence. Attack the flash. Attack the father. Attack the upbringing. And when there's nothing left to attack, make something up. But this time they got caught. Because you can't manufacture a lie in a world where everything is on camera. You can't fabricate a character flaw when the footage tells a different story. You can't scream lazy when the kid sitting front row with his eyes glued to the whiteboard, surrounded by coaches, breaking down film like it's a second language. Rex didn't get caught in a debate. He got caught ignoring the facts in plain sight. And that should disqualify him from being taken seriously. But the sad reality? He'll probably still be on air next week, pretending like none of this happened. That's how the cycle works. The player gets smeared. The lie gets louder. The truth gets buried. And the system resets itself. Unless someone like Shedeur refuses to play along. That's the shift happening right now. Not just in this one controversy, but across the culture of the NFL itself. Players are realizing they don't need to play small to earn big. They don't need to silence their voices to be respected. They don't need to wait their turn when they've already shown they're ready. Shedeur is not just representing a new wave of quarterbacks. He's representing a new kind of leadership, One that doesn't wear a fake mask of humility to make analysts feel comfortable. One that doesn't water itself down to fit an outdated blueprint. One that says, I've done the work, I know who I am, and I'm not apologizing for either. And that terrifies people who build entire careers on gatekeeping access to respect. Because this new wave, it's coming with receipts, with film, with presence, with polish, with family legacies that taught them the system and how to survive outside of it, with confidence that isn't delusion, it's earned. It's not just about who can throw the longest pass anymore. It's about who can carry themselves when the cameras are rolling and when they're not. It's about who understands that performance doesn't end when the clock runs out. It continues in every interview, every post, every move you make. And Shedeur, he understands the assignment. Completely. His confidence isn't a marketing gimmick. It's a survival strategy. It's a long-term investment in being more than just a player. It's about building a brand, a legacy, a platform that will last long after the pads come off. And he's doing it in real time, with grace, under pressure, and with millions watching. That's not laziness. That's vision. And it's not just a win for him. It's a win for every player who's been told to shut up and wait. For every athlete who was criticized for being too confident before they were allowed to be celebrated. For every young black quarterback who was told to smile more, speak less, and act grateful just for being in the room. Shedeur's presence is proof that those rules are crumbling. And Rex Ryan? He just became the latest example of why those rules needed to go. He tried to drag a player through the mud using a false narrative that crumbled the moment it faced evidence. And when the footage dropped, it wasn't just a defense. It was a declaration. The era of unchecked, baseless criticism is ending. The days of former coaches playing gatekeeper while ignoring the truth are numbered. The culture of controlled personalities, muted players, and performative humility is breaking apart because the players aren't buying into it anymore. They're showing up with their own platforms, their own proof, their own playbooks for success. And they're not afraid to show every part of who they are on and off the field. The NFL can either adapt or keep getting embarrassed by its own inability to evolve. Because Shedeur Sanders didn't get exposed. The system that tried to silence him did. This wasn't about one false accusation. It was about decades of coded criticism finally hitting a wall. And the next time someone tries to question a player's work ethic without facts, without evidence, without anything but personal discomfort, there's a blueprint for how to respond. Say nothing. Let the tape roll. Let the receipts speak. Let the truth do the talking. Because the truth always survives the smear campaign. And in this case, it didn't just survive, it won. The fallout from Rex Ryan's false claims didn't just die quietly. It left a stain. Not on Shedeur Sanders, but on the credibility of everyone still clinging to an outdated system that doesn't know how to handle confidence when it comes wrapped in authenticity. Here's the thing. Shedeur didn't need to clap back. He didn't go online and rant. He didn't send out a statement or demand an apology. Because when the lie was exposed, the truth stood there on its own, stronger, clearer, and louder than any made-up narrative could ever be. That's the part that stung the most for people like Rex. They didn't just lose control of the story. They lost control of the playbook. The same one they've used for decades. The one that silenced outspoken players, flattened individuality, and kept anyone too bold firmly in check. But this generation, they aren't asking for permission anymore. They're walking into locker rooms, front offices, and media cycles already built, already branded, already aware of how the game really works. They've seen what happens when you do everything right and still get dragged. So now, they're playing offense on and off the field. That's what Shedeur represents. Not rebellion for the sake of it, but strategy, intentionality, and a refusal to be boxed in by narratives that serve no purpose but to keep certain people in power and certain players in line. This whole incident, Rex's lie, the league's quiet frustration, the footage that blew it all up, was bigger than just a media blunder. It was a rupture, a visible tear in the way football culture polices behavior, particularly when that behavior comes from a young, confident, black quarterback who refuses to tone it down just to make others comfortable. And let's not downplay how coded these criticisms are. When Rex called Shedeur lazy, he wasn't just talking about effort. He was invoking every tired stereotype that's been weaponized against outspoken black athletes for years. It's never just about football. It's about framing, about power, about who gets to be seen as disciplined, humble, and coachable, and who gets labeled as arrogant before they even take the field. That's why the footage was so important. It didn't just prove a point. It obliterated a narrative. There was Shedeur in every meeting, taking notes, front row, not on his phone, not checked out, not joking around, engaged, serious, doing exactly what every coach says they want to see from a young leader. So what now? Where does the NFL go from here, knowing the old tactics are starting to backfire? Because Shedeur isn't going to be the last player targeted like this. As more athletes embrace their platforms, challenge media narratives, and come in with the confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are, the system's going to have to choose, evolve or stay bitter. Evolve, and you get a league that actually reflects the players it markets, that stops punishing authenticity, that celebrates individuality without slapping a distraction label on anyone who doesn't fit the mold. Stay bitter, and the league keeps exposing its cracks. Because the more players like Shedeur show the receipts, the more fans start to question everything they're told, every critique, every character hit piece, every concern about maturity or coachability. It all starts to feel like noise. The power dynamic is shifting, quietly, steadily, and the league can either adjust to that new reality or keep getting outmaneuvered by players who know how to control their own story. Shedeur Sanders didn't just win a PR battle. He outplayed the old guard at their own game without saying a word. And that, more than anything, is what changed the conversation. Because at the end of the day, confidence backed by work isn't arrogance. It's leadership. It's the new standard. And it's here to stay.